The Israeli Vautour IIA is the only available French top-tier premium jet, boasting impressive versatility and payload options. Is this premium still worth its high price tag? Alright lads, today I'm going to be talking about the Israeli export version of the French Vautour, the Vautour IIA IDF. As always, we'll start with the basics. This is a rank 5 battle rating 9.0 premium jet bomber, located in the French tech tree. The BR of 9.0 gives it pretty good matchmaking, and you will hardly ever see supersonics. Most games you will be in the current 8.7 to 9.7 sweet spot. Being a premium, the Vautour also gets decent RP and silver line modifiers, with 606% and 690% respectively. These are by no means bad, but there are other premiums with higher silver line modifiers at a similar or same battle rating. The Vautour IIA is a packed vehicle, and must be bought off the Gaijin store for the price of €50. In the pack, you get the jet, 2,000 golden eagles, and 15 days of premium time. €50 is a very high price to pay, especially as this is a jet bomber, but we'll come back to this point in a little bit. If you'd like to know more about this premium, and whether I think it's worth its rather steep €50 price tag, then stick around for the rest of the video. During World War II, the French had suffered greatly, and the key focus of the first post-war government of France was a rebuilding and modernisation of its armed forces. Due to the German occupation during the war, France lagged behind the other Western powers in terms of factories, designers, and technological advancements. The best example of this is that France had no technical knowledge of jet propulsion, especially when compared to the other Western powers such as the USA and Britain. France set about fixing this deficit by purchasing the license for the Rolls-Royce Nene engine, and many of the early French jets were powered by British engines. At this point, France did have its own domestic jet engine in development, known as the Attar. It was being designed by the Snecma company. While it was promising, it was still far behind the British and American counterparts in terms of reliability and overall maturity. In June 1951, the French Air Force issued a detailed requirement for a jet-powered aircraft capable of performing several different battlefield roles, including medium bomber, low-level attacker, and an all-weather interceptor. In response to this requirement, the SO 4050 was born. This was a modification of an already existing design. 3 of the SO 4050 designs were ordered for testing, and the first test flight of the new prototype took place in October 1952, and went very well, with one plane managing to go faster than the speed of sound in a shallow dive. A further 6 prototypes were ordered. One of the prototypes was powered by the Armstrong and Siddeley Sapphire engine, and another with the Rolls-Royce Avon engine, and the remaining 4 all powered by the domestically produced French ATAR engine. The tests were impressive, and the SO 4050, now given the designation Vautour II, entered service with the French Air Force in 1958. All of the production variants of the Vautour were powered by the French ATAR engine, after proving themselves to be sufficiently powerful and reliable enough during the prototype testing stages. The Vautour remained in French service for several decades, finally being retired in 1979. Throughout the Vautour's long career, it saw no combat service, and even after a few years after its introduction, it was already deemed obsolete and underpowered. Although it had been a moderately competent aircraft when it had originally been developed, the Vautour never benefited from the adaptation of sufficiently powerful engines, even though suitable power plants did become available. As an interceptor, it was soon outclassed by the new Dassault Mirage III. While in its role as either a bomber or attack aircraft, the lack of an advanced navigation and attack systems became a crippling limitation upon its effectiveness. The only export customer for the Vautour was Israel, who had chosen to procure a number of other types of combat aircraft from France as well. During the 1950s, France and Israel closely cooperated on various areas of defence, including armament, aviation and nuclear research. Unlike the French Vautours, the Israeli jets did see active combat, carrying out several attacks against Israeli opponents in the 1967 war. A notable engagement being the shooting down of an Iraqi Hawker Hunter, as this is the Vautour's only confirmed air-to-air kill. The premium that we have in game is an Israeli Vautour IIA, armed with unique Israeli weapons and camouflages. The Vautour is powered by the previously mentioned ATAR engines, producing 3,360 kg of thrust each. This allows the Vautour to reach a max speed of 1,100 km per hour at sea level. The engines are by no means bad, in fact they are incredibly powerful. While they won't propel the Vautour into the record books for top speed, they maintain a lot of power in climbs, allowing you to retain energy in the vertical, much better than pretty much every other 9.0 jet. This is reflected in a climb rate of 52 meters per second, making you more powerful in the vertical than a MiG-17. The The 8R engines do not feature an afterburner system. This, and the large airframe of a bomber, mean that the Vautour's low speed acceleration is below average for its battle rating. If you get slow, it's much harder to get back up to your top speed again, compared to a contemporary fighter. Luckily enough for us, as this plane is a bomber, it gets an air spawn, which somewhat deals with the acceleration issue, as you will start at speed and at altitude, and a smart Vautour player can conserve their energy and never put themselves into a position where they are too slow. Due to it being a bomber, it naturally has a pretty bad turning radius, with a full turn time of 32 seconds. Due to the poor turning circle, and the fact your wings will rip off at a sustained 7G turn, high-speed horizontal manoeuvres are pretty much out of the question. Eliminating horizontal turns leaves us with just one alternative, going vertical. As we previously mentioned, the great engines of the Vautour mean that it can maintain its energy incredibly well in climbs, which allow you to outclimb opponents and then drop back down on top of them, also whilst regaining your speed. The Vautour should be played in the vertical as a boom and zoomer, if you're going to try and use it as a fighter. Whilst it performs the role of a heavy fighter pretty well, it does have a few issues. The biggest one by far is the compression of control surfaces above 900 km/h. It is very hard to manoeuvre when you're at your top speed, and is felt worse in the rudder. At higher speeds, it is better to roll the plane and use the elevators to aim, rather than using free aim. This is due to your rudder being pretty much completely useless at speeds above 800 km/h. If for any reason you do need to dump off a lot of speed, the Vautour has a pair of amazing air brakes which are incredibly effective. Overall, the Vautour is pretty powerful compared to most 8.7 and 9.0 jets. Its limitations in terms of acceleration are mitigated by the air spawn, and due to its bomber flight model, it is pretty tanky, allowing you to soak up a lot of shots. Its performance in the air, despite being a bomber, is pretty good. Whilst being pretty poor in the horizontal turns, it can sustain a spiral climb with a MiG, and most opponents will dramatically underestimate your ability to fight. Along with the Vautour's decent flight characteristics, it also has a wide selection of weapons available, allowing you freedom and flexibility in your playstyle. The primary armament of this plane are the 4 DEFA cannons. These are essentially 30mm Aidens built under license. Being clones of Aidens, they hit incredibly hard and essentially one-shot anything you hit centre mass. As I said, you get 4 cannons, with 400 rounds in total, or 100 rounds per gun. This is a rather limited ammunition supply, especially considering the guns have a cyclic fire rate of 1,200 rounds per minute. While 100 rounds per gun is rather low, I haven't found this to be much of an issue, due to the DEFAs vaporising anything they hit. It should be noted, however, that the effective range of the DEFA cannons are essentially anything below 0.8 km. After this range, the cannon rounds lose velocity very quickly, and it becomes near impossible to lead a round on target with at least 2 working brain cells. Apart from the poor long-range effectiveness of the DEFAs, they are probably the joint best guns in War Thunder, alongside the British Aidens. Being a joint bomber and ground attacker, the Vautour gets access to a wide range of ground attack options. This plane can carry several different types of bombs, rockets, and a variety of both at the same time. Starting with the bombs, the smallest bomb payload available is 10 250-pound bombs, for a combined equivalent of 2,500 pounds of explosive. I see no reason to use this setup whatsoever, and it is a similar story with the next bomb load, of 10 500-pound bombs. While this is an impressive bomb load by itself, it is overshadowed by the other bomb loadouts available, namely the 10 750-pound bombs, which give you a combined equivalent of 7,500 pounds of explosive. The reason 10 750-pound bombs is so good is that mini-bases in air-realistic battles require 3,000 pounds of explosive to be destroyed. This is the equivalent of 4 of your 750-pound bombs. So as the Vautour can carry 10 750-pound bombs, you can destroy the equivalent of 2.5 mini-bases, which will earn you a good chunk of RP and Silver Lions. The Vautour can also carry 6 1,000-pound bombs. While these bombs are bigger than the 750-pounders, you carry less overall explosive equivalent, with the 6 1,000-pound bombs only giving you 6,000 pounds combined, compared to the 10 750-pound bombs giving you 7,500 pounds. I see no reason to use the 6 1,000-pound bombs whatsoever. The 10 750-pound bombs are more useful in both air-realistic and ground-realistic battles. The 10 750-pound bombs are more useful in both ground-realistic and air-realistic battles. The 750-pound bombs have a kill radius of 9 meters, while the 1,000-pound bombs have a kill radius of 11 meters. The difference in power of the bombs is pretty much meaningless. You will have to be just as accurate with the 1,000-pound bombs as you would with the 750,000-pound bombs. And I'd rather have the extra 4 750-pounders, just in case I make a mistake. As well as the bombs, the Vautour can carry a variety of rockets, armed with different warheads. The first rockets I'll cover are the T-10-121s and the T-10-151s. Both of these rockets use the same rocket motor and therefore have the same flight characteristics. Both rockets have a maximum speed of 390 meters per second, and they feel very similar to the British RP3 rockets. You can carry 24 of either the 121s or the 151s, and they are located on hardpoints on the outer wings. The only difference between these two rockets are the warheads that they carry. The 121 carries a high explosive warhead containing 3.4 kg of TNT. This allows it to penetrate 36mm of armour, which is certainly usable, but it lacks the ability to splash enemies, and a direct hit will pretty much always be needed for a kill on a player-driven tank. The 121s could be used against soft targets like AAA and Realistic, but if you are ground pounding an RB, the aforementioned 750 bound bomb loadout is far better in my opinion. The 151 rockets are equipped with high explosive anti-tank warheads, giving it 450mm of penetration against flat armour. Due to this rocket carrying a high explosive anti-tank warhead, a direct hit will be needed, as this type of warhead produces very little splash damage. However, due to both the 121 and 151 needing direct hits, I believe it is far more beneficial to carry the 151, the rocket with the high explosive anti-tank warhead, compared to the 121 carrying a regular just high explosive. However, I believe both of these missiles are eclipsed by the SNEB rocket. Again, like the T-10 151s, they have a high explosive anti-tank warhead, so a direct hit will be needed for a kill. The SNEBs at first glance look like a downgrade over the 151s, as their penetration is only 300mm compared to the 450 of the 151, but where the SNEBs shine is their flight characteristics. The SNEBs have a speed of 600 meters per second, and whilst in flight, the rocket motors burn for a long time, meaning you don't really need to take range into account when aiming. However, to be honest, I wouldn't really recommend using any of the rockets in either ground realistic or air realistic, as I think the bomb loadouts are still far more useful if you are trying to ground attack. There is an argument that carrying rockets gives you a lot of firepower, but still allows you to be somewhat manoeuvrable, as carrying 7,500 pounds of bombs does make you fly like a bit of a brick, but I would still choose the bombs over the rockets. The last weapon system available to the Vautour, and really the secret weapon of this plane, are the 4 Israeli Shafriya's air-to-air missiles. These are rear aspect lock infrared missiles, and honestly, they track as well as AM9Es. These missiles don't have the longest range, but within around 2 kilometers, an enemy who is slow or in a gentle turn will get obliterated. It says on the stat card that these missiles only have a 10G overload, but it feels far higher than that due to how well these missiles track their prey. Their Shafriyas have a top speed of 800 meters per second, meaning if you get behind an enemy, close to around 1.4 kilometers, and then launch, the enemy usually doesn't have time to evade the missile. Overall, the Vautour is one of the best armed planes for its tier. It can function perfectly well as a ground attacker bomber and heavy fighter with its wide array of armament loadouts. When you load into an air-realistic battle, you will have to choose what role you want to perform within the team. There are 2 that I think are most beneficial. The first is the regular base rushing tactic that many bombers are known for. You'll essentially take 10 750-pound bombs and bomb 2 mini-bases, and then speed off back to the airfield for a fresh round of bombs. This can work pretty well, especially for making RP and Silver Lions, and due to the Vautour's decent speed and favourable matchmaking, there isn't really any other plane that can intercept you, apart from another Vautour. The Vautour does very well in the bomb rushing strategy, but where this premium excels is in the heavy fighter role. Load up 4 Shafriya missiles and take to the skies. Here is where all the attributes of this plane come together. You get an air spawn, even with the missiles, which puts you higher and faster than all of the enemies as soon as you spawn. From here, you can rush over the heads of the enemies climbing, and then come down on top of them, allowing you to make the first move of a game. When enemies are climbing at the early stages of a game, they usually are not checking their 6, which allows you to close in behind them and hit them with a cheeky missile. I said in the performance section that this plane should be played as a boom and zoomer, utilising vertical manoeuvres to escape slower and less powerful enemies below. And this is pretty much exactly how I play this premium. After you make the initial pass on an enemy, just climb right back up to altitude and come back down on top of them. Because most of the planes you'll be fighting don't have air spawns, they usually do not have the airspeed or power to follow you back up in the climb, which gives you some security even if you screw up a pass. As long as you keep your speed up, you are pretty much king of the sky. However, I cannot emphasise enough just how important it is to keep your speed up. A slow Vautour is a dead Vautour. As I mentioned, your engines are good at retaining speed, but not really powerful enough to accelerate you rapidly. If you get caught with your pants down, most of the small dedicated fighters will accelerate you and catch you. Another reason to keep your speed up is to be able to dodge missiles. The Vautour being a bit chunky, it struggles to pull the Gs needed to dodge missiles when going slowly. Some notable enemies to look out for are the Hunter FGA-9 and G91YSs, as well as pretty much any jet with an afterburning engine, as they will have far better acceleration than you. However, none of these planes get an air spawn, You should also pay particular attention to any jets you know carrying missiles. As I previously mentioned, you will need to take evasive action far sooner in the Vautour compared to a more manoeuvrable fighter. Overall, the Vautour's heavy fighter playstyle is very rewarding for players who are experienced in jet combat and have a good understanding of energy retention, while the bomber and ground attack roles are more suited to casual players who want to make a quick bit of RP in Silver Lions. In conclusion, the Vautour is one of my favourite premiums in the game. I just feel incredibly cheeky every time I get a kill, and watching how upset people get from being killed by a bomber is just incredibly funny to me. I just feel like a big troll when I play this jet. The Vautour is a joy to fly if you're an experienced pilot, and is competitive up to around battle rating 9.7. Its large weapons payload offers a variety of playstyles, making this plane profitable for both casual players looking to pursue common rush bombing strategies, and the absolute mad lads who try and dogfight MiGs in a bomber. While the Vautour IIA is certainly a powerful plane, let's not forget that this jet has a €50 price tag, and that is certainly a very steep price to pay. So let's go over some scenarios for buying this plane. Scenario 1. Is this plane good for grinding out the French tech tree? Yes. This jet certainly is a good buy for anyone who is interested in the French tech tree, due to the aforementioned strengths and flexibility of the jet. Scenario 2. I want to grind the French tech tree, but I have no experience in jets. Should I buy this plane? No. I would never recommend anyone without experience to buy a premium jet. Not only will you most likely get stomped on, but it's also unfair to your teammates. Top tier jet matches depend on having good teammates, and if you're inexperienced, you put your team at a disadvantage. For new players looking to grind the French tech tree, the premium Yak 3 or putting a talisman on the P63C-5 would be a much better choice. Scenario 3. I have no real interest in the French tech tree, but is it worth buying this plane for its performance, weapons, and ability to grind Silver Lions? Not really. There are other premiums available for the same price, which have much better performance reward modifiers and have a much lower skill cap. The best example of this is the Chinese Shenyang F5 and Soviet MiG-17 AS. Both have the same €50 price tags, but have substantially higher Silver Lion modifiers. Scenario number 4. I am a retard with more money than sense and just want a good time. Should I get the Vautour? Yes, absolutely. Apart from its price tag and poor Silver Lion modifiers, it has no real downsides that can't be dealt with by smart flying. Unless you are made out of money or really like the French tech tree, I wouldn't really recommend picking up this premium for its full €50 price tag. The Vautour bundle is quite old now, so it is regularly featured in Gaijin sales, and the price is usually dropped to around €25, and for that price I would definitely recommend buying it. As always, I hope you found this video useful lads, and thank you very much for watching.